Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Productive Attorney. This is the podcast where I teach you and we teach you how to do things more efficiently as an attorney so that when you're no longer an attorney or outside of being an attorney, you have more time to do the things you love to do. Today, we're going to talk about something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I have always thought about it during my career, and that is retirement. Uh, right now, just this week, I turned 59 years old. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been planning towards big plans towards trying to retire or work less. And that's one of the things I want to get across in the podcast. There was an article that came out yesterday that I saw where a lawyer was talking about that he's not necessarily retiring, and he's not going cold turkey on retiring. He's just working less. And that's kind of the way I'm going. It's not the way everybody's going, but the way I'm going right now is I have hired attorneys. I'm fortunate enough that the firm is successful enough that I have the ability to hire 2 attorneys. And I've hired those attorneys to do the things that I no longer want to do as much of, if at all possible. And so for me, the hard things were preparing for trial after doing this for 34 years was starting to wear me down. And preparing for hearings, preparing for trials, preparing for depositions. Doing the depositions, doing the hearings, doing the trials, those are always fun. Those adrenaline gets going. But my personality is to prepare the case as thoroughly as I can. And in order to do that by myself when I was a solo lawyer and do all the other functions of the law firm, I found that that was the thing that was causing me the most stress in my life and in my practice. So I hired attorneys who would come in, and they've been great. I've hired attorneys to come in and to do those things. One of them is doing all the pre-suit work and negotiating with insurance companies and doing the preparation of the file to prepare the demands and doing all the hard work on that end. And then the other one is handling the depositions, although they split them. They split depositions, they'll split hearings. But one is primarily in charge of trials, and his job is to make sure that the cases are ready for trial and to take them to trial. I will sit second chair if necessary, or even first chair if need be. But I am not doing the lion's share of work of preparation on these cases. And for me, that has created a huge weight off my shoulders and allowed me to focus on things such as this podcast and other things that I really enjoy doing. And so that's been one of the things that I've been doing towards retirement. But even now, I am now talking with my staff and giving them more responsibility with the firm and advising them of a specific date that I talk about handing over the reins of the firm to people so that I'm still involved, but involved in a much less capacity. So retirement has been something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and what does that mean and what does that entail? Because when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, it's just kind of a pipe dream. Hey, I won't have to work one day. I'll have enough money and I'll be able to do the things I want to do. And so this goes to everybody. This goes to lawyers in their 20s all the way up to lawyers who are just thinking about retirement, because I've lived all of that. So what I do in my law class is I ask my law students how much they think they need to retire money-wise, and I've gotten answers everywhere from 50,000 to 100 million. Now on the young lady who answered $50,000, I said, okay, let's say you have expenses of $4,000 a month for your first year of retirement when you're 65, let's say, and you get to 66 and now you have $2,000 left. What are you going to do? And she's like, oh, okay, I understand why it's not $50,000. Now the 100 million, you ask that person, can you spend, $500,000 a month? And no, you can't. It just wouldn't make any sense for you to do so. And so that's ridiculous too. So we'll talk about the number that I think you could kind of shoot for to be able to comfortably retire. But the other thing I asked them to do is I say, what would you do if you could retire today? if you ended up had a case that came in and gave you the magic number to retire and you got that money, what would you do? And I have them write it down. What are your passions? What are your hobbies? What are you things you want to do? And the students will tell me the various things that they want to do, and I tell them, why don't you do that now? Why don't you do the things that you're super passionate about now? I understand law school and being young lawyers and being young parents, especially, you don't have time to do these things to the fullest extent that you'd want to. But you can still do something towards those passions to keep them hot in your mind, to keep them as something that to practice towards them, so that when you really get closer to retirement, you've kind of developed a niche in that area. You've developed contacts in that area. You've developed the process by which you can do it. For example, in my world, I decided that very young that I was an older brother, and I was captain on my sporting teams. And I also, when I was in college, was they had soccer camps, and I was a coach at the soccer camps. And I realized that I had a knack for that, and I realized I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the energy of being around people who are learning, being around younger people. I enjoyed that energy, and it gave me energy. So I decided that I wanted to become a soccer coach, and so I started very small. When I was 27 years old, I coached a rec team of I didn't have kids yet, but one of the partners in the firm I was at, his son was playing, I think it was like under 5 or under 6 soccer, and they needed a coach. And I went out and did it, and I loved it. And I did that for a little while, and then another partner in the firm came to me and said, there's a select soccer team that needs a coach. And so I went out and got my highest license that you can get. And I remember it took time when I was super busy at work to go get this license. But I felt like I needed to do it in order to be qualified to do it. And I went ahead and started coaching select. And I ended up coaching that select team for 6 years. And the relationships that I made and the bonds that I formed with my players carry to this day. I talk to my players to this day. In fact, one of them works for me. I've talked to 3 of them actually 4 of them in the last month. I mean, that has been something that, even though it was 20 years ago, and so it is something that I'm glad I did when I was younger, even though it took a lot out of me. I'm also big brothers and big sisters. I realized I could help with that. And my little brother Shane, he is somebody that I started with when I was 26 or 27, and we still keep in touch. He's 40 now, and we still keep in touch, and he became close to my kids. And so it's something where I practiced what I preach to my kids, and that is, if you find something that you're passionate about when you're in your 20s or in your 30s, do it. Do whatever you can. Don't have to do it to the fullest extent, but do whatever you can. The other thing that I talk about with the younger students is fitness. My philosophy on fitness is designed to go into retirement. When I was younger, I started to recognize that I was stronger. I was as fast as I was ever going to be. I could run as far and as quickly as I ever could. And I was doing well. As I started to get a little bit older, things got a little bit harder, especially like early 30s. I couldn't run quite as fast. I couldn't do things quite as well as I could. But I realized that every workout that I had done, especially in my formative years when I was like 18 to 25, those workouts developed a base fitness that I had that would stay with me for the rest of my life. And so I always tell the younger people, find time to do the workouts, because every workout you do when you're in your late teens and 20s are really worth about 4 or 5 workouts when you get up to be 50 or 60, because you're developing a base when you're younger to keep that fitness in place. The other thing is, as you get older, or as the reason why I did fitness throughout my whole life was to come to this moment, so that when you're in your late 50s, early 60s, and you're thinking about retirement, you're healthy. So many people that I have seen who get into their 50s and 60s and have done everything right with respect to retirement don't have their health. Now, some of it it's terribly unlucky. Some of it they get cancer or they get something that they have no control over. But for those that have control over it, but their body's just broken down because of lack of fitness or lack of nutrition or lack of elasticity from stretching out, um, that those folks, I think, regret the fact that they didn't do the type of work, fitness work, when they were younger. And it's never too late to get started, and it's never too late to get going. But I would always remember that when I was doing my fitness, I was doing it. When I was doing fitness, my thought process was always, I like it and I enjoy it. And I like the way it makes me feel, and I like the way it makes me look. But also on top of that, I'm doing this fitness for my family. My children need me. As they grow older, they're going to need me. My significant other is going to need me if I'm the provider of the family, and she's going to want me to be around when I'm and healthy when I'm later. And then my older me is going to be thankful to my younger me for doing these workouts, because now I'm fit and I'm late 50s, early 60s, got the time, the ability to do all the things that I wanted to do, and I want to have the fitness and the energy to be able to do it. So with respect to fitness, um, you know, keep it up and do what you can. Now, don't go. You have to be smart, and this is where the Type A personalities that lawyers are. We tend to just go into everything full bore. Like I did triathlons, sprint triathlons, and I got way into it. I did, right now I'm doing yoga, and now I'm teaching it. There's all these things where I tend to go to the extreme and talk to my wife. She's like, yeah, you do the extreme on everything. But I have noticed that I've had to dial back. For example, I did CrossFit for a long time. That is an extreme. And I started to break down, injuries and just aches and pains. So I switched to core power yoga, but hotter yoga, high-paced yoga, and that has really helped me. And I dearly miss the CrossFit community, and I dearly miss doing my CrossFit. My body is just telling me no. My heart is saying yes, go do it, and my body is telling me don't go do it. And so you have to be disciplined in actually not doing certain things if you are a Type A like me. The other thing I've noticed is that there are certain people who are good at things. I think running's an example where they are good at running, and biking's another one, and so all they do is that. I see people who run every day, and you can see how stiff they are. And I talked to the lady who does my treatments once. I go into myofascial therapy once a week, where she works on me and does trigger points and muscles and does all this stuff to really help me out. And she talks about, she didn't never tell me about a specific patient. She just talks generally about, yeah, there's people who do biking, and while they can bike 100 miles a day, they are messed up because their body is just trained to do that, and they're not flexible in ways, and they're breaking down in other areas. And I see that with runners as well, where you see runners who barely have a stride. You can tell they've run every day for the last 50 years, but they're not limber or anything like that. So try and diversify your workouts. I do. I'm going to play kickball tonight. That's just something for fun for me to do. So when it comes to fitness, younger, set the base. Older, dial back if you need to, but don't dial back, too much. I'll talk about money because everybody thinks about money, but I want to talk about things that whenever I do my goals every year with my friends, money's never at the top of the goal. There's fitness is always everybody's talk about fitness and how they want to lose weight and how they want to feel better. So nutrition is another thing I'll talk about. The thing about as you get older, there's some interesting things that happen with nutrition that you may not expect. You learn as you get older what things your body can tolerate and cannot tolerate. I found that my body, while doesn't have celiac disease, it doesn't tolerate gluten real well. So I am not doing a bunch of gluten, and that restricts the things that I can eat. So if I was younger and I would eat this stuff, I wouldn't have quite the lack of tolerance for it as you get older. You'll find as you get older that the foods that you eat narrow the types of food that you can eat, because different types of food cause different problems with your body. And so if you're younger and you're doing things, yeah, partake in the really good food, and enjoy the taste of it, because as you get older, you may not be able to eat some of that for health reasons or various reasons. The other thing that's I thought was really interesting with respect to nutrition is metabolism. There is a certain amount of calories that your body burns, and if you want to lose weight, it's all about math, and I can talk about that later. But there's a certain amount of metabolism that your body burns a certain amount of calories each day, and I think in my case it's between 1,700 and 2,200 calories. I can't remember where exactly it is, but it burns that every day. That's just your natural engine. If you woke up and really didn't do anything, but that's how much you'd burn. Well, that metabolism, studies have shown, stays the same, believe it or not, from 20 to 60. But then at 60, it starts to drop. So much so that if your metabolism drops, and they can measure that it does, in order to maintain your weight, you have to eat 300 calories less per day. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot. Because if you would eat 300 calories less per day, the math is really simple. That's 30 days times 300 calories is 9,000 calories, and each pound is 3,500 calories. So if you would eat 300 calories or less a day, when your metabolism stays the same, you would lose 3 pounds a month. And that's just simple math. And that's how people do lose weight, is by tracking what they eat, calculating the calories that they intake, and figuring out how much that they expend, either through exercise or through general metabolism. So for example, in my case, if I burn 1,700 a day, but I go do a workout that's a 500 calorie workout, well, I've got 2,200 calories. In order to lose weight, I have to have a deficit. So that particular day, I would only eat 1,700 calories. I'd have a 500 calorie deficit. If I really want to lose weight, then I would eat, I would eat 1,500 calories, and I'd have a 700 calorie deficit. And if you have 700 calorie deficit, 5 days, it would be 3,500 calories. You'd lose a pound. So that's how but that changes when you get older. And so you've got to understand that you're going to have to eat less as you get older, or else your body's going to start to really gain weight. So that's my feeling on nutrition is with respect to retirement, is you're going to eat less foods, different, you're not going to have as rich of a diet, and you're going to have to eat less. And so if you're younger, have fun. But if you want to lose weight, just use the math and figure that out. Now, the one that everybody always thinks about is always worried about his money, right? How am I going to have enough money to retire? And if you're younger, the thought is start to put money aside. Even if it's a little bit, start to put money aside. There's multiple ways to do it. The most traditional way is to put your money in an IRA, or some tax or some retirement fund. And typically what a retirement fund does is that the money grows tax-free until you get to a certain age, and then you can withdraw it. And you can withdraw it, and I believe the way they work is the only thing you get taxed on is the gain in the money over the period of time, but you don't get taxed on the money that you put in there. And it also comes out pre-tax, so you're not taxed on it when you put it in. So it's a pretty good deal, and it's something that you want to do. Since they're such attractive mechanisms, there's limited amounts that you can put in each one of these IRAs, and most people like to max out their IRAs. And there's a Roth IRA, which gives you more advantages or more flexibility in the investments you can do with that and things you can do with it. And so if you do have the ability, you should max out your IRAs. Now, I'm somebody who didn't do that. That was not my money philosophy. I was more of each month I would put money aside, but what I put it in was whole life insurance. And that's a terrible investment vehicle, and it's not great advice, but it's actually worked for me. The difference between whole life and term life is whole life is like you're buying a house, so you're buying an insurance policy, but that grows equity. It has cash value as you put into it. It's much more expensive, similar to buying versus renting a house. If you buy term insurance, you rent the insurance, but once you stop paying, you have nothing. You don't have any cash value or anything to show for it. It's a lot less. You can buy $1 million worth of term insurance, meaning $1 million of coverage if you die, for about the same price or less than you could buy maybe $50,000 or $100,000 in whole life insurance. And that's because whole life insurance ends up making money. So what I did was any significant event in my life, I would buy whole life insurance that I felt was important, or what would pay at 65 or would be fulfilled at 65 or sometimes 70. What that means is you pay the policy in full at 65 or 70, and by then that time, then you can start taking it out all at once, the cash value, or you can do it over time. So, for example, when I got married, I bought a whole life insurance policy. When I had my first son, I bought whole life insurance policy. When I had my second child, I bought a whole life insurance policy, and I bought those things as well for my wife. Each month, they would take out money out of my check, and early on, when I stretched on the whole life, it was super expensive in my world. But that rate stays the same. And so as you get older and you start to have higher income, you don't even feel it. Like, I don't even recognize that that money comes out of my account each month. It's so small compared to all the other expenses and things that I have going on in my life. And so what's interesting is that on the front end, that cash value doesn't look good at all. But now that I've gotten older, that cash value in that life insurance is significant to the point where it's a significant portion of my retirement strategy. Um, Another kind of thought I had on money is it's important to diversify and put your money in various things. Right now, we're in the middle of a bear market and the stock market's going down. If you had everything in Bitcoin or everything in the stock market, your whole asset, everything would be going down. And there are a lot smarter people than me when it comes to money on retirement. And I talk to them a lot, and I ask them, what I should be doing. But for example, I have a couple rental houses that I own that I rent out, so those are monies coming in. I have my office, which is another point that I would bring up, is if you are a small firm attorney or a solo attorney, find a way that you can own the building that you're practicing in. If you can find a way so that you don't have to pay rent, because if you're paying rent, you're just throwing that money away. But if you're able to buy a building and you're able to go ahead and put money into that building, that money, that's an asset for you, and you're building equity in that. So it's not only serving a purpose of giving you a place to practice law, but it's also building equity in this building. I remember an attorney that I saw in Washington, D.C., and he had bought a 3-story brown house in downtown D.C. I don't know, I'm not saying that right, but a 3-story building in downtown D.C. And he said, that's my retirement right there. And he was right. I mean, that building would be worth a lot someday, and he stretched to buy it, but now he's really glad that he's got it. We have an office right now in a 4,400 square foot historic building house. It's a house, so you can either sell it as a house or you can have an office in it. And that house is now an asset for me when I retire. So, I'm kind of diversified, and I have real estate holdings with respect to the rental homes and with my own personal house and with my office. I have this whole life deal. And then I do chunks of money. When I get an opportunity with the firm and as a contingency firm, we have chunks that come in. When they come out, I get taxed on it front end, so I eat the taxes early and put it in very conservative savings accounts, just stock funds that track the Dow, very conservative things that I put it in, and just have them. One's the bank accounts is just so I sleep well at night, and then the ones in the stock funds are designed to just track the market and go up and down. So if I'm diversified enough with the whole life and the real estate and with the stock funds and with the money in the bank, that I feel like that's enough. So what's the number, right? What's the magic number in which you retire? Everybody wants to know what's the number. Well, different people have different lifestyles, and you have to kind of recognize what your lifestyle is. I will say that I've had accountants in my classes, and they will always raise their hand, and typically the answer is 3 to 5 million if you want to live very comfortably and want to retire early. If you're going to retire in your late 50s, early 60s, you need more money than if you're going to retire in 65 or 68 or 70. I forgot about Social Security. That's going to be coming in, but I wouldn't count on that. I don't know that program They've talked about that program running out of money in 2030. They've talked about that program running out of money all over the place. So who knows what that's going to be? And I'm really not counting on it, but that's out there as well. And so, depending on your lifestyle, 3 to 5 million is kind of where you want to be. What I have found is that people who get to that number just keep going. They want more, and that's a whole nother podcast and a whole nother story about people's personalities, about what they want more or not. So shoot for that 3 to 5 million mark, but you can retire now on between 1 million and 3 million if you're really smart with your money. Anything less than $1 million, it'd be really, really difficult. You'd have to be really, really frugal. But over that, you can make it work. Then I want to talk about this retiring early. If you happen to hit a home run and you get a big number, are you going to retire early? And I have seen this time and time again during my career, not only in lawyers but outside of the law, where people have hit a home run and gotten to those magic numbers in their mind and retired, quote, retired, younger, and 30s and 40s and 50s, sometimes in the 40s. And what happens inevitably is this. Those folks will go out and do what they want to do for anywhere from 12 to 18 months. Usually 18 months is the magic mark. And then at 18 months, they go, what else is there to do? And they tend to get really bored. The other huge thing is they lose relevance in the world. If you're out playing golf every day, or you're out with a little group every day, and then you come back home and you're sitting at home and everybody is doing things in the world. They're out at work, or they're doing something else, and they're not hanging out. You're just sitting there. Eventually you're like, what's the meaning of it all? Okay, I have enough money, I'm relaxing, I'm doing the things I want to do, but I'm bored. I know it's a stupid problem. Okay, you got enough money, more money than 99% of the world, and okay, you're bored. It's truly a first world problem, a rich person problem. But it is something to address, where if you reach your goal and you do have that amount of money and you do it for 18 months and then you're bored, what do? And I've seen a lot of answers to it. The most common answer is people go back to work. They go back to doing the things they want to do, but they do it in a way that they like it. I had one individual who made a bunch of money outside of law and went and did something, got out for a little while, came back in, and loved it because it kept him relevant. That's really the only reason that he did it. And that's what I always thinks about, is relevance. On the other hand, I've seen this. There's a few lawyers I know who have retired who absolutely, positively do not want to go back to work. They do not want to be in a law firm. They do not want to work. I found that with big firm lawyers. Like, they want out of that world, and when they got out of it, they were really glad that they got out of it. The smaller lawyers who handle things on their own, people like myself, I think the way it goes is you just find the things that you like to do in the practice and continue to go on. So, for me, I enjoy the marketing side. I enjoy talking to clients. I enjoy going out and finding cases that are good cases and being able to help people and putting them in the right spots. Doesn't necessarily have to even be my firm. If someone has a case and they're interested in getting help, I know everybody in town. If you come to Fort Worth and you have a problem, I will find the right lawyer for you, and I will find somebody who's very good at what they do to help you with your problem. Or if you have a budget, I will find a lawyer within your budget who is good, who can help you with your problem. That's a skill that I have. That's something that keeps me relevant, so I'll do that. The other last few points I would say is, you in your retirement plan, you have a significant other. Most cases, most people have a significant other. You've got to be communicative with your significant other. You've got to let them know what your plans are, and they've got to buy into your plans, and then you've got to buy into their plans. For example, right now my wife and I are discussing, what retirement would look like for both of us, what she would want to do, what I would want to do, and how we can make those work, because we've been talking about this for a while, but when it starts to become a reality, you really have to understand what it is, both of you, what your goals are with respect to this. My wife was on city council, and now she's transitioned into being kind of a part-time head of a nonprofit, and she's doing a great job with it, and she loves it. But we talking about where are we going to travel, when are we going to travel, what are we going to see. I'm more of a beach guy. She's more of a inner city kind of guy, and so we have to work through those things. We've got to work through how those issues are, and so you need to have those discussions with your significant other. And I will tell you that a lot of, and this has been just this is not sexist, but this is just what I've seen, is a lot of guys who have retired and gone back home, and their wives have their own routines in place, and the guys come in and they kind of interfere with their wives' routines, and their wives are like, you need to go back to work. In fact, Ann has told me, you're not coming home for all day, are you? I've got things I'm doing. And she's right. No, I'm not coming home all day. I got things I want to do, and I'll keep relevant. So just don't think I'm going to retire, sit home, and my significant other is going to wait hand and foot on me. That's not going to happen. Those are my thoughts on retirement. I wish you all luck in getting there if that's your goal, and trying to reach all of that. That's The Productive Attorney. Have a great week. Thanks.